As the Director of Investments on the infrastructure debt team, talk to us a little bit about the opportunity set you're seeing in the pipeline today.
Unequivocally, the biggest opportunity set is digital. And I say that just because the amount of capital that's necessary to build out the data centers that these hyperscalers want is, I don't have another word for it, it's crazy.
Can you quantify that opportunity and how much investment is going to be made just on the data center side of things for us?
So if you think about it from the perspective of some of the biggest hyperscalers in the world today, if you just look at their balance sheets, what's on their cash, what kind of cash they're holding, it's in the order of $500 billion. So let's just make the assumption that some portion, a large portion of that $500 billion is going directly into investments in data centers.
And that's just building out the data centers themselves.
Correct. So just to give you an example of one deal, we have one deal that we're looking at right now, which is, it's about $2.5 billion worth of debt for roughly 200 megawatts of power. So if you do the math real quick, you'd assume it's a construction financing, so 2.5 million, and then assume 75% debt, that's $3.3 billion of total investment in 200 megawatts worth of data center.
And I'm guessing there's going to be a lot more 200 megawatt or larger facilities being built out across the country.
Absolutely. Like if you think 5 years ago, a 30 megawatt building was considered a hyperscaler. And I think today, it varies depending on who you talk to, but roughly 100 megawatts now. So 3 times that size is what a hyperscaler would be considered a hyperscaler. And that still would end up being on the smaller side. And we're hearing, there's deals of 1 gigawatt, which is huge.
Just for reference, how much power is 1 gigawatt?
So roughly 6 gigawatts of power powers New York City. So for a 1 gigawatt data center, it's roughly 1/6 New York City.
One data center might be 1/6 of the power of New York City.
Right.
That's a pretty powerful data center.
Yeah, and we're not just building one data center. We're building multiple of these data centers. And like I said, there's $500 billion of cash, give or take, behind that. So the investment landscape just for data centers is huge. And then on top of that, you have to do the 1 gigawatt worth of power.
And so what is powering these assets? That's probably a whole other opportunity set as well.
Yes, that is an entirely different opportunity set. And that goes to how much power is necessary to power a data center. In 2023, the US used roughly 4,000 terawatt hours of power over that time frame in 2023. Expectations now we're hearing are for power to grow 2 to 3% on an annual basis, which doesn't seem like much, but if you do the math, it's roughly the addition of a mid-sized state on an annual basis over the next 10 years and that in fairness, that doesn't just include data centers, that includes electrifying of everything. But even if you were to assume data centers take 1% of that, you're still talking adding a small state, right? It doesn't matter. The amount of power that is necessary to power them is going to be a lot. And that's not just generation, it's also transmission. And I think there's another knock-on effect here in that when you think about the power that's going to be necessary to power the data centers, ultimately that power has to come from somewhere and at a cost to someone else. And I think you're going to see residents having issues with power because of the power demand of the data centers. And I think that ultimately turns into a situation where data centers don't want to be a hindrance on the communities they're in, and they start thinking about building behind the meter solutions, meaning that they take their data centers off the grid and generate power themselves. And I think that brings in a whole other opportunity set of distributed generation that currently isn't being talked about.